Hi, welcome to the High Lady Book Club.
My name is Jessie, and I love podcast discussions and deep dives.
And I'm Katie, and I love all things Sarah J Maas and outlandish theories.
So we combine those loves into a weekly Sarah J Maas discussion podcast. We'll be reading along to her books.
We're diving into Crescent City first, and class is starting now.
This is the English class you don't want to spark note. Welcome back to the High Lady Book Club. If you're new around here, we are a weekly Sarah J Maas fan podcast. We're reading Crescent City, the first one, House of Earth and Blood. I'm reading it for the first time, and Katie is our resident Sarah J Maas expert.
Yeah, so we start all of our episodes off with a recap of the chapters that Jessie read. You can find our reading schedule on our Instagram page. Check it out at the High Lady Book Club. And then we'll get into some fun discussion and talk Maasverse theories.
Katie, how are you doing this week? All the way over there?
I'm good. Yeah, I work in a school, so I have the summers off, and unfortunately, today was my first day back at work. So I moved back into my apartment, and Jessie and I now have to do this podcast from afar. So bittersweet, but yeah, I'm good other than that. How about you?
I'm good. I'm getting to the point with this book where I'm having a really hard time putting it down. So I'm really excited to talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so Jessie's about to recap Crescent City chapters 15 to 23. So if you didn't do your homework, stop listening here, and otherwise tune in to recap with us.
Yes, so we're starting with chapter 15, which was switching between Hunt and Bryce's points of view as Hunt is keeping an eye on her. And I was thinking to myself, they're definitely in the enemy part of the enemy to lovers trope.
So true.
Yeah, I loved how Hunt is this badass demon hunter who is the governor's personal assassin, but is so bothered by Bryce, a young 20-something, half human, half fae, who is just seemingly just living her life, blowing him off, pulling the shades, like, leave me alone.
I know, we have Hunt,
that.
like, we see Hunt, like, literally killing people, and he seems bothered by it, but like not that much. And then here's Bryce, and he like can't stand her. And then meanwhile, Bryce is like the opposite, and she just could not be bothered with Hunt.
Yeah, she's not impressed by his resume. She's like, yeah, whatever, get out of my way. And we also have this funny moment where Bryce is at the gallery, and Lehaba is like wants to meet Hunt. She's like, let him inside, like don't let him out there in the rain. And Bryce is like, F off, Lehaba, sorry. She sounds cute though, like a little annoying, and she really wants to meet Hunt because he led her people in battle, and she has like a lot of respect and admiration for him. I enjoyed her character.
Yeah, I feel like I really like Lahaba's character. She's a little dramatic, but I love how Bryce like makes fun of her and nicknames the show she's watching as like Fangs and Bangs. It felt like something like, like Too Hot to Handle or something along those lines.
Yeah, it was like a trashy like reality show that had a lot of sex in it or something.
Yeah, I know, I thought that's funny.
I liked that. And then chapter 16 opens up with Rune, and we learn he's basically living the life of a college frat brother. He lives with his friends in this house that sounds like it's in shambles. The descriptions literally gave me flashbacks to frats I went to in college at Penn State. And I also just loved the note that the Star Sword is on top of a pile of dirty laundry.
I know, right? He's just like, he's got his like shit strewn everywhere, and then like his really important heirloom thing that he like won is just right there with all of his laundry.
Just laying around on his dirty clothes. The chapter opens up and he's getting high on mirth root. And Bryce shows up unannounced and he's super high and is like cannot concentrate on what she's trying to talk to him.
Yeah, and he's having some really interesting hallucinations. So while he's high, he sees Bryce with a halo of starlight dancing around her head, and it's going in and out of his vision. And when Bryce walks near the star sword, it starts to glow, and Rune swears he hears it singing. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on, what that could mean.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe he has to be high to like see this like otherworldly part of her maybe that's there. Like a halo, it's giving me angel
Interesting.
vibes. It's giving me
Hmm.
vibes that she has some underlying power. And clearly, maybe she's going to end up using the Star Sword.
Interesting.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
won't weigh in specifically, but I just feel like anything that Sarah J Maas puts in, every single word has a meaning. So I feel like those hallucinations are not nothing.
no, nothing is a coincidence in this universe.
It's so true.
And so we learn that Bryce is there because she's inquiring about the Viper Queen's whereabouts the night of Tertian's death. Rune also discovers that the governor has involved Bryce in the case. He's super pissed about that. And then he's even more pissed when he learns that she now has a new bodyguard, Hunt, who we learn that him and Rune have had a past where they've got into a physical fight. And Hunt has like punched Rune in the nose, broke his nose. Rune broke or bruised some of Hunt's ribs.
It sounded pretty intense, their feud here.
Yeah. And they almost are going to like get into it again, but then people are around watching them. They remember people have cell phones because they're out on the street and anyone could like be recording them. And they're like, they reel themselves back in, or at least Rune does.
Yeah.
um,
And I know you had, pointed out to me earlier that this is just like another little drop of all of the technology and how that impacts things. And it's very like present day here in on Earth where we have these cameras and especially celebrities have to be careful of, what they do because anybody could be recording them.
yeah. And we're like, it seems like we're following celebrities in this world. People know who these people are.
Yeah.
Chapter 17, Bryce finally reveals her list of suspects, which Hunt thought she was just blowing him off the whole time. But we learn that she actually went to the nail salon because that's where Tertian's girlfriend works. And she learned this through a dating website. She found like Tertian's dating profile, found his girlfriend, which also felt very present day. Like that's how people like find things all the time today about people.
Yeah, it's so true. You want to get some dirt on somebody, just find their dating profiles for sure.
Bryce learned that Danica and Tertian were really only connected through the Viper Queen. That was the only
Yeah.
possible connection that there was. So Bryce wants to feel this out. She thinks that the Viper Queen's a suspect. Hunt's all we have to go by the book. There are protocols. And Bryce is like, screw that. Like, no, I'm
Yeah.
not doing that. So later, she sneaks out to the meat market, which sounds like Nocturne Alley from Harry Potter,
I
is
know
what
it's so
I
true. It's
thought.
got the like dark, like questionable things going on there and like some shady people, shady shit goes down here.
Yeah. Yeah. And she goes to this salt merchant, which is apparently a big thing in this world. You can get salt for all these different kinds of reasons, but Bryce is here specifically asking for obsidian salt. And we learn that black salt is used for luring demons. So we can only assume that this obsidian, this very dark salt, is for that. And the satyr who
Yeah.
works at this place is like, I can't do that. But Bryce is threatening him and suggests that he sold Philip Briggs obsidian salts. We don't know how Bryce knows this, or if she actually does, or if she's bluffing. But
Hmm.
eventually she gets the obsidian salt, and she's leaving, and she runs right into the Viper Queen with Hunt. And yeah, I was thinking that Bryce really does remind me of Abby from Broad City in this chapter, because even though Abby was the more reserved of the two, of Abby and Alana, sometimes she would do things like take things really far, and you'd be like, oh my God, like she's like just as crazy as Alana, just like not as obvious about it. And like that really gave me those vibes, being like, wow, Bryce is a badass.
Yeah, I definitely could see the similarities there because Bryce is like, just low key about everything, doesn't tell anybody her plan, and then it's just like, this is what I did to get the Viper Queen's attention, and it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. And Hunt's just following her along and like being surprised at every turn, just like we are.
I
um,
know she's like stringing along this like assassin, like, warrior general, all these, accolades, and she's just like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you anything, and I'm going to get more done than you are.
Seriously, she knows how to get shit done. And it might not be by the book, but it's effective.
True.
So the Viper Queen, she does seem to have a good sense of humor. She like acknowledges that her bodyguard that Bryce is with Hunt. And I love Bryce's response was, there's nothing going on upstairs, but everything happening where it counts, in reference to Hunt, and just like completely roasts him. I loved that line.
I know. I know. I love her. I love how she just, yeah, puts on this air of just being like, I don't care that this is the Umbra Mortis. I'm just gonna call him like some like, like Ken doll vibe.
Yeah. She just insults him right to his face, and he just like doesn't say anything. I loved that. Um, and the Viper Queen is surrounded by these 4 Fae males who are her bodyguards, and we learn are possibly addicted to this venom that she secretes like a drug, which gave me True Blood vibes, if any True Blood fans are
Yeah.
out there. And so Bryce, again, just incredibly ballsy with the Viper Queen. I'm like, damn. Um,
Yeah. I feel like she should be a little careful with the Viper Queen, because she reminds me a little bit of Jessica. They both have this like kind of sense of humor, this like air about them, but also like very deadly and nobody wants to mess with them. And we get this line about the Viper Queen's power. It's rumored to be something different, something extra that mixed with her venom, something strange and old. So definitely
hmm.
has my wheels spinning about what that could mean, or, what that will have to do with her character later on. But I definitely feel like for now, at least, Bryce should be careful messing with her.
Yeah, she was very nonchalant about it. So the Viper Queen says she wants them to come back to her office. It's this like dingy, not this nice place. And the Viper Queen is like, I know why you guys are here. You hear about Danica and the murders. Well, it wasn't me. I was on a 3-day orgy the night that Danica died. So I have proof. I'll give you the USB thumb drive. You can put in your computer, watch the whole thing. Like, I loved that.
I know, and Hunt is like, absolutely not. I am making somebody else do this. I do not want to watch your 3-day orgy.
Right. Like, I love that she just, like, I know exactly why you guys are here. She also has an alibi for when Tertian was murdered. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking, and maybe Hun and Bryce are thinking, okay, well, I don't know, is she still a suspect? She clearly has these pretty tight alibis.
Definitely like I don't know. She's still
She's still
potentially
maybe,
a
yeah.
suspect.
And we'll just, part of our discussion, we'll go into the suspect list.
Yes, yeah.
Chapter 19, Bryce is finally kind of breaking down or requesting Hunt's help for coming up with where Danica's whereabouts were the last week that she was alive. And they go down into the library in the gallery. That's like this secret library. No one is supposed to know about it. It has these books that apparently the Asteri and the Senate would order destroyed if they knew that they existed. And apparently they're books that people would kill for and have killed for. So
Yeah.
very interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
Bryce is like, you got to make sure that you don't tell Micah about this. Like, you can't. And also when they're down there in the library, it gets brought up that Bryce freed Syrinx and
Yeah, Syrinx.
Syrinx. And so Hunt is starting to like, his frozen heart on Bryce is maybe thawing a tad when he learns that she isn't this wealthy party princess. She actually, like, this Syrinx was going to get sold. She asked Jessica to buy his freedom, and she literally can't afford it because he was like $230K, and like part of her paychecks are like paying for his freedom. So clearly she's
Yeah.
not like some heartless
Yeah.
party girl.
I think that especially resonates with Hunt because he's a slave and, Lahaba and him get into a discussion about how much they cost. And so it just kind of really drives home the fact that like their lives are literally for sale, like you can purchase them. And so they definitely are very much slaves. And I think that definitely helps him start to maybe not hate Bryce as much.
Yeah. Yeah. He's starting to see a different side of her. And we also learn that Hunt is 233 years old, and the rebellion was about 200 years ago. And he mentions that he was good at killing and asks Bryce if she's ever killed someone. And she says yes, which I was not
Yeah.
expecting.
Yeah.
And she doesn't get into the story, but she does say that not to him, but in her monologue in her head, it says that it involved her and Danica in college. So I'm
Hmm.
wondering what the heck that's going to be about. And then we learn a lot more into this investigation when Rune meets up with Bryce and Hunt at Luna's temple. Rune comes in with this information that Luna's horn was a weapon wielded by Peleus, the first starborn prince. And Luna's horn was forged in their home world and used to battle demon hordes once they made the crossing. And Rune also says that he learned the Star Eater created a demon just to hunt the horn and shows a picture of it to Bryce. And it's the demon that she saw that was feasting on the angel after Danica's death.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. And we learn that the demon is called the Crystallos. And
Hmm.
Rune found all this information deep in the Fae archives, and it was all written in the old Fae language. So now they're coming up with this theory that maybe someone is summoning the Crystallos to find Luna's horn. And maybe could Danica and Tertian have had contact with Luna's horn, and that's what brought the demon to attack them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so very,
Interesting.
yeah. Hunt calls one of the other Triari, Justinian, to look up information about the Crystallos. And then Justinian makes a comment how his partner, aka Bryce, is easy on the eyes, and Hunt shrugs it off. He's like, I will never get over Shahar, my love of my life, like the only person I'll ever love. Like that's in his internal monologue. And Justinian's like, it's been 200 years, dude. Like maybe you could move on. It just that like classic like love trope in with Sarah J Maas books. It reminded me of a different couple. And I'm just like, Yeah, he's like acting like he's all hung up on this other woman, but like him and Bryce are going to be mates or whatever, like version of that is in this world. That's going through my head.
It's definitely checking some boxes for Sarah J Maas's typical, love story. So definitely a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. And we also at the end of that chapter get some more like insight into Rune and Bryce's relationship. She's basically like, hey, this investigation,
Hmm.
our teamwork together, this is just to figure out who the murderer is. Like, none of this changes anything about our relationship. And we learn that Rune, like when they had their fight or falling out, called her a half breed slut.
Yeah. And since we've been making Harry Potter references this episode, it kind of reminded me of Hermione being called a mudblood and how that can affect, it really is like a huge insult.
Yeah. Like it's something that stays with you. You don't just throw
Right.
that out there. That like cuts deep. And then the last chapter that we are recapping is 23, where we learn that another murder has taken place at the old square gate. And Bryce doesn't want to go, but Hunt insists that she comes. And it looks like an acolyte from Luna's temple was the victim. And
Hmm.
they were murdered in the same way that Danica had been.
Yeah.
And Bryce sees the remains and starts spiraling, basically has a PTSD episode. I mean, it's the same way that she saw Danica. She's thinking of the apartment, all those things. And Hunt reveals that he was there that night that Danica died and revealed that it was Micah that the demon was attacking, the angel
Hmm.
that Bryce saved.
Yep. The archangel of the entire continent. Bryce saved that night. Didn't know it was him. And that's how the chapter ends. Another classic
Yeah.
Sarah J. Maas turn of events.
I know. We keep ending these on these huge cliffhangers, and I'm like, what is going on? What's gonna happen? Um,
I know, right?
she really keeps you on your toes. There's so many like twists and turns, especially with this series, I feel like.
Yeah.
Um, but why don't we take a quick break and then we'll get into some discussion.
Yeah, let's do it.
Shall we discuss?
Yeah, let's get into it. So I have a couple different topics that I wanted to pick your brain on from this chapter or this set of chapters. One is a little bit of information we learn about hell. So we learn that it was severed from time and space, but it's still accessible through the twin portals at the North and South poles. So that's that northern rift that crossing happened, and then there's a southern rift apparently as well. And we learned that, yeah, you can access hell. And so I'm just curious what your thought is on that.
Well, I'm wondering, it also made me think of how the sections of this book we learned are going in, we are going through parts of hell. The hollow,
Right.
we're
Yeah,
on
we're
the trench now,
descending.
descending. So I'm wondering, are we on our way into hell? Like, are we actually going to go where this place seems to exist? Is what I'm thinking. Is what this is going to lead
Interesting.
to.
Yeah. And the other question that kind of raises is, do you get to see people who are in hell? Like, would we get to see Danica and the pack of devils?
Hmm.
Or hopefully, I mean, they're not in hell, but if they
Hopefully
are,
not.
I don't know, like, who are we going to meet in hell?
Tertian, perhaps.
Yeah, that's actually a great guess.
That
He's
would be my
probably
guess.
number one.
He seems, yeah, that hopefully not Danica and the pack. They gotta be up in heaven. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah,
But
hopefully they're somewhere enjoying themselves.
as they deserve to be. Yeah, so I think but that yeah, I feel like we're gonna get there, I think. somehow,
Yeah,
some
we'll
way.
find out. Yeah. Um, so we've started our murder investigation officially in these chapters, and we have two suspects that are raised in this set of chapters, the Viper Queen and the Autumn King. And so let's talk about the Viper Queen first. Um, what are your thoughts? Do you think that she's fully, her alibis, her 3-day orgy that makes her, immune from from having done this, or do you think she did it? Do you think she could be involved? What do you think?
I think so. She definitely could still be involved because, I mean, a few reasons. Like, yes, she had alibis and proof that she wasn't there, but that doesn't mean that she
Right.
didn't orchestrate the whole thing and conveniently
Yeah.
make sure she was other places to make it seem
Yeah.
like it wasn't her. Also, the fact that it's also a little sus. Oh, here is my alibi. It's already, and I get it. She's like a high profile person. Maybe she's a very good at anticipating these things, but also maybe you're giving yourself away a little bit because you're too good.
I know,
Like,
right? Like you already have a thumb drive ready to go. Like I already have everything downloaded for you. Here it is.
yeah, like that's a little sketchy. Like, if
Yeah,
someone
I
came to your
agree.
house and is like, "Where were you the night of so and so's murder?" and you're like, "Oh, here's my outlet. Like, here's where I was." Like, you'd be like, "I don't know. It's a
Like
little sketchy."
what? And I feel like I agree with you, and I think her advice is interesting. And I remember when I first read it before, you know, I hadn't finished the books. Um, I remember being like, what the hell is this advice? Like, look toward where it hurts the most. That's always where the answers are. What does
Hmm.
that mean? Like, do you have more information that you're just refusing to share? And you're just,
True.
here's my cryptic advice to you, girl. Or is it more like some deep inner, this is what always works for me, and this is how I find, out information?
Out.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just felt weird.
It was odd. It made me what it immediately made me think of, and this might be crazy, but it made me think of Danica's mom as a potential
Okay.
suspect. And that was only
Okay.
because when she said look toward where it hurts the most, I kind of thought like, who, if this person was the killer, like that kind of thing, like who being the killer would be the most devastating? And to me, it'd be someone
Right.
who was like close to Danica, like supposed to like love her. So it kind of made me think,
Yeah.
I'm like, could it be? I mean, we know that they had this tension, this power struggle, and we've seen that Danica's mom is like concerned about where the sword is, like on the same night that her
Yeah.
daughter was killed. So part of me is wondering, did Sabine work with the Viper Queen to like to make this happen? I don't
Interesting.
know. That's
Interesting. And that
maybe
could
a
make sense as
potential.
to why, yeah, that could make sense as to why the Viper Queen has this cryptic, like maybe she does know something because it's this cryptic advice.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see it
And
going either way.
yeah, definitely. So we have Sabine, we have the Viper Queen now on our list, and let's add the Autumn King on there. In these chapters, um, Bryce is thinking, could he be involved? She asks Rune, and Rune is like, no, he's an asshole, but he wouldn't stoop this low. But it is interesting that he is so fascinated with Luna's horn and really wanting this. And now we have this whole theory that maybe their deaths are linked somehow to Luna's horn and this crystallos demon. And so I don't know. It is kind of pointing to the Autumn King as well.
Yeah, he's clearly really wants Luna's horn. It's Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. Like he does have motive.
Hmm.
And like they pointed out in the book, like maybe he's getting rune on it, looking for it, and he has a demon going for it as well. And it did attack Micah.
Right.
Now we know. So whoever is orchestrating this doesn't like Micah. We know that the Autumn King doesn't.
Right.
It could be him. And I mean, that would
Yeah.
hurt that could hurt the most, if not that maybe we don't know if the Viper Queen knows that Bryce is his daughter, but if your dad orchestrated what ended up killing
Right.
your best friend, yeah, that could also
That
classify as
sounds
hurting the
hurtful.
most.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I don't know. They're both
So,
like definitely on the list, and I don't know.
yeah. So we have those three suspects. I mean, at this point, it really could be anybody. I think we
Yeah.
could probably cross Bryce off because we do know what she was up to that night. We got a firsthand, experience. But other than that, we
Yeah.
really don't know. Do you
No.
have any strong, thoughts as to any of these suspects? Do you have a prediction as to which one it could be?
Like, I hope it's not true, but part of me feels like because she's not on the list officially in the book, like part of me thinks maybe Sabine. I
Okay.
don't know.
All right.
I just think because it's so effed up, and that's how Sarah J Maas is. But maybe I'm just
That's true.
totally
It's true. And
off.
it fits with the advice that the Viper Queen gave her. So I like your theory. We'll go with it.
We'll see. I hope we'll see, I guess. I want to find out
Yeah.
who it was.
Yeah. So we've definitely, learned a lot. We've got this murder investigation going. I think I'm looking forward to reading more and hearing, your theory of who it could be as we keep reading. But I think now might be a good time to take another break. And maybe after that, we'll jump into some Maasverse discussion with Akatar and Throne of Glass. So if you haven't read those series, stop now and we'll see you next week. And if you have, keep listening because we'll jump into some rabbit holes.
Yes, I love these. I love this part.
All right, so let's take a quick break. All right, so let's jump into some Maasverse discussion. So in these chapters, we learned a little bit more about the ordeal. And we learned that it varies from person to person. So it's not like one universal thing that somebody goes to. And the greater the fey, the greater the ordeal. And I thought this was interesting. There's a quote, it might be as simple as overcoming an illness or a bit of personal strife, but for others, it might be slaying a worm or a demon. And that just made me think of our friend Feyre in Akatar and how she slayed a worm.
Wow.
But she did it when she was just a human.
True. Before she was Faye. Wow, I did not pick up on that. I can't believe I didn't.
Yeah, it's just a subtle little nod to it, which I think is interesting. Um, and just a fun little like, yeah, Feyre went through an ordeal, and maybe they don't
It
have the same, you know, customs in Akatar, but she kind of did it still.
certainly with Amarantha, she went through a freaking ordeal, that's for sure.
It's true.
Yeah, that is so interesting. The idea of the ordeal is really interesting. And now I'm wondering what Bryce's was. And I'm
Yeah,
thinking we'll learn that. This also another thing that reminded me of Akatar was
yeah.
when Lahaba was talking about the books that are in the secret library. She says, in quotes, don't let the books sweet talk you into taking them home. And these books
Hmm.
like try to leave and kind of have like minds of their own in a way. And it really reminded me of the book that Feyre stole from the summer court. when they're going
Yeah.
in that like passage that is only you can access when at like low tide, and how it was like speaking to her and kind of knew that she wasn't like the person that was supposed to have it.
Yeah, the books seem to be like sentient beings in both worlds. And I think even it reminds me of in Akatar when they're trying to nullify the cauldron and she has the two pieces of the books in her hands and she ends up being influenced by the books and putting them together and things go south from there. But it's just interesting. So it makes sense why we have a little fire sprite, Lahaba, guarding them because they would be afraid of fire. So it makes sense why you would need a guard for books.
Yeah, it definitely like I'm like, are these books all from the same world? Perhaps they're related
Interesting. Yeah.
somehow.
Um, Bringing it to the other series, Throne of Glass, we learned that the Avalon Fae in Crescent City are ruled by a stag king. So that has me thinking Aelin, she
Mm,
has this stag representation. Could the Fae who live there come from Throne of Glass world or, something like that? That's just interesting
yeah,
to note.
descendants from Terrasen.
Yeah, yeah, that I would love that. Um, We also see the statue of Luna in her temple, and at her feet are two twin wolves. And I thought that was interesting. We learn in Crescent City that both the wolves and the Fae claim Luna as their patron goddess, and they're kind of battling about which one gets to claim her. But it kind of reminded me of Throne of Glass, the two twin wolves that Maeve has, or she doesn't have them, but she owns them. They swore a blood oath to her, Fenris and Connell. And that has me thinking because we talked before about Danica
Mm.
Fendir. Is she potentially related to Fenris? And now we have these twin wolves. Could Luna be Maeve? That would be awful news for
Oh my
everybody.
God, that would be
Um,
crazy.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. It also just could be Deanna in Throne of Glass World because Luna and Deanna both have, the goddess of the hunt, of the maiden, and the moon. So it totally could just be her, and
Yeah,
I don't think that's any better for us. So,
true. Yeah, they both suck in their own ways, but Maeve is like a crazy bitch. I don't know.
yeah. But so is Deanna. She, possesses Aelin and almost kills Rowan and also kills Elena at the end. She's just like,
Oh
you've been
yeah,
annoying me this whole time. I will
you're
not make a
right.
bargain with you.
You're right. They both suck. Yeah, they
Yeah.
really either could be contenders for sure. I mean, I hope not because they're both awful. Okay, talking about Luna also makes me think of Rune's quote about Luna's horn, where he said, the horn became enough of a nuisance for the demon princes that they did everything they could to retrieve it from him, meaning Peleus.
Right.
So the demon princes immediately made me think of Throne of Glass. I
Yeah.
mean,
The
we've
Valg.
heard of, yes, the Valg. We've heard of demon princes before. Hello, Erewhon, Maeve, all the shitheads that they brought into the world.
So true.
So that just makes me think like, are these the same types of demon princes? And like, oh God, if they are, that's not good.
Yeah, that's terrible news for us. Yeah, so far I feel like some of these parallels are like scary to think if it's true. It means bad things are coming for Bryce and everybody.
Yeah. I mean, demon princes, I just feel like,
Yeah, not good news.
mm-mm.
The last thing I wanted to talk about that is related to actually both ACOTAR and Throne of Glass is this eight-pointed star, which we learn is an emblem of the Starboard. And I thought this was interesting because I just recently read A Court of Silver Flames, which is about Nesta and Cassian. And the tattoo that Nesta and Cassian have as a result of their bargain together is an eight-pointed star. Just a parallel there.
Yes.
Um, and a sword maneuver that Cassian teaches them is also an eight-pointed maneuver. So we
Hmm.
see this eight-pointed thing kind of throughout their story. And then at the end, when they're in the prison, Nesta sees an eight-pointed star surrounded by constellations. And when they're in the prison, when they're finding the harp is sitting in the middle of the eight-pointed star. And Nesta says these markings, these
Hmm.
constellations, feel different than the night court. And so they get into this conversation about what it could be, and Cassia tells her that Reese said there may have been an eighth court on the island where the prison is. So I just find all of this very interesting, considering,
Yes.
we know that these people in Crescent City came from a different world. Um, we have this emblem of the Starborn, which Rune is the heir to the Starborn Fae, and we have this eight-pointed star in the prison. I don't know. Do you
Oh my
think they could be an
gosh.
eighth court?
Yes. It sounds like that. Is Rune gonna be the next king of the eighth court or something like that?
Yeah, the high fae. This is what makes me think that could be possible. So we have the dawn court, we have the day court, we have the night court. But what else could be related to this eight-pointed star and constellations? Maybe dusk? And
Yeah,
who
we don't
has
have.
some shadow power? I don't
Oh
know.
my God. That that is just so interesting.
Yeah, it cannot be a coincidence. Really interesting stuff. And then to kind of take it even further, in Throne of Glass, in the first book, the very first book that Sarah J Maas ever wrote, years ago, um, the High Priestess wears midnight blue robes and has an eight-pointed star tattooed on her forehead in the same shade as her dress. So still we're getting nighttime
Hmm.
vibes around this eight-pointed star. It also
Star.
has to do with like a priestess. And
Hmm.
we see this high priestess when Selena is sitting for a Yulmus ceremony or a celebration of some sorts, like a um, I don't know, like almost like a church ceremony. Um, and it's the day in which the great goddess gave birth to her firstborn, Loomis, Lord of the Gods. And with his birth, love was brought into Aurelia, and it banished the chaos that arose from the gates of the word. So that's what the high
Hmm.
priestess is like there to celebrate. And during the ceremony, a child representing God of War gave a gift to Duke Parrington, which is the Vault King. So that's kind of interesting because, we later find out he is like, the guy causing all of this war. But
Yeah.
also, yeah, Deanna, goddess of hunt and maidens, gives Selena a gift of a golden arrow. So that's interesting because of Luna and Deanna and how they can relate.
Wow. That
Yeah,
is so crazy. If that all ends up connecting and she wrote that in the first book that she ever like published, wrote.
yeah. Over 10 years ago.
Oh my
Yeah. And the reason why I definitely think it could is because the gift Selena got was a golden arrow. And when Rune and Bryce are at the temple, Luna is holding a golden arrow. So just a lot of parallels for sure.
Oh my God, that is so fascinating. I
Hmm.
didn't I did not put all that together. I wouldn't have without your knowledge. Your extensive
Well,
knowledge.
it just helps to keep rereading all the books all the time, and you're like, wait, I just read about this. Let me go back.
If
You
you're just
just keep finding things.
if you just never stop reading the books, these things just jump out at you. Is
It's all
this
you do all day. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
Oh my God. I appreciate it for piecing it all together for me. Spoon feeding us the information from all your reads and
I mean,
rereads.
and I'm not saying anything has fully, been connected or anything, but I just think these are all these little like things that Sarah J Maas has sprinkled in that we should be paying attention to. And maybe this is me getting in my clown car, as Jessie likes to call it, whenever she comes up, mostly about Taylor Swift, little
Mostly,
theories that people have.
yes, it's very, if anyone else here is a Taylor Swift fan, they probably know about the clown car that we all cram into. Sometimes it burns you because you go down a whole rabbit hole and you're convinced that something is going to happen. And sometimes it certainly does. And sometimes you are just totally wrong. But it's
Sometimes
fun.
you're like,
It's a
wow,
fun
what is
ride.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah, either way, it's entertaining. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great. Well, I think that concludes our episode.
Yeah, we had a lot to unpack and discuss this episode. But I'm definitely excited to find more parallels and see what you think of Bryce's investigation.
Yes, I'm really excited to see where this investigation goes. I hope we get some answers soon.
Yeah.
And I also am loving these parallels. And I'm excited to
Yes.
I'm going to read even closer and try to pick out some things.
Yes, I love it.
So for next week, we're going to be reading chapters 24 to 29. So definitely read those so you can come and hang out with us for our next episode.
Yeah, and we'll find out if we end up in the clown car again.
Knowing us, we probably will. Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please give it a review or a like or share it with one of your book friends. We would really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks for attending English class today.
To keep the discussion going, join us on Instagram at the High Lady Book Club.
Make sure you do your homework for next week, and we'll see you back here.